Hello, hello, and welcome to Chapter One of Uphill Battle. Uh, First of all, like to introduce herself. I'm Dion Hill, and my co-host.
What's going on, everyone? Dallas Hill. How's it going?
Okay. um, I just wanted to, before we start the show and get into our discussion, just explain to you all what Uphill Battle is. Um, I guess. It's kind of a play off of our, of course, our last names, but um, really it's a play off of those father and son, like highly questionable, or like what's right with Nick Wright, whereas though it's a father and son tandem when it comes to sports, but the sport of our choice is politics,
That's our
and
arena. That's right.
is something that is a passion of both of us. And it's going to be, we believe it's going to be a very interesting hour or so each week because we have come from two different generations about being black men in America. And as many people know, black people are not a monolith, not even considered in your same family. And people have different opinions. And may surprise you that the different generations may have the same opinions when it comes to certain things. But we're going to try to entertain you and we're going to educate you. So if you don't know politics or you don't think you're really interested in politics and it's not a real passion of yours, this will still be the show for you because like the we like to say this is politics coming on tilt. So whereas though we actually are going to explain and tell you things so you can be more educated and give you the at that actual food for thought and actually give you the process of trying to go out and learn some more stuff that could be very important to you. So with all that said, let's start. Um, uh, First of all, I'll explain to you we have different segments. Um, And the first segment in the battle is our initial engagement. This is when we pick something in politics that's local and we like to share with you. So first, go ahead. I've been talking enough, Gal. What do you like to share in our initial engagement?
Yeah. Just going off of something that you had mentioned, people that might be tuning in that aren't as politically engaged or motivated. And it's fine. Everyone has their own lives to live. So I understand people don't have time to keep up with politics or what's going on in the government, but it's very important to stay in the know because politics affects every single aspect of your life. There's nothing that you experience in your existence that is not impacted by politics on some kind of level, whether it be the local level, the state level, or obviously at the federal level. Yeah, I just wanted to kick off with something that is going on at the local level. I currently live in New York City, and something obviously that's has been going on in New York City is that we have a new mayor, Zoran Mamdani.
Yeah, how
He
are
is
you
a
doing with
yes.
that communist you have over there?
I know it's been crazy living in communist New York City. We're now
Yeah.
governed by Sharia law, depending on who you ask. But no, it's going. He's been off to a great start, and one of the reasons why so many New Yorkers um really really fell for him and believe in him is because it's very clear that he is for and of New York City. And that's telling, and the fact that most of the things that he's done so far, and I'm going to touch on one of them, but they've been city things that need to get done. Like he's helping fill potholes. He is helping, like when we had major snowstorms a couple weeks after one another, making sure that there's snow plows going down each and every street to make sure that people don't have to deal with what comes with snow being on the ground for so long, or dangerous conditions on the streets. Um, just stuff that a mayor is supposed to do, and it's very refreshing to see somebody that clearly is in public service because they want to serve the public. And one of the main things that I really want to highlight that I think he that just showcases how good of a job that he's doing is that he's been holding rental rip-off hearings. And these rental rip-off hearings were created under executive order from Mayor Zoran Mamdani as a way for tenants to speak directly to the city about systemic housing issues. So by
Mhm.
facilitating interactions between residents and senior officials from NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, and the Development of Department of Buildings, they are the main players in the rental housing arena. The administration is aiming to bridge the gap between government oversight and living conditions within rental units. So the mayor's office to protect tenants is running these rental rip-off hearings, and each hearing is divided into three sections. So there is a resource fair portion, there's a community vision discussion, and then there's the formal testimony session. And the resource fair gives New Yorkers immediate access to city agencies for individuals to, seek help in, with whatever problems that they might be facing within their rental units and in their buildings. The vision screening session allows for collaborating, with different city officials between that could be landlords, tenants, and obviously the city officials on how the city can improve housing standards. The most important part of the hearings are the testimonies. And this is very critical because it allows New Yorkers to put their personal struggles on the record for city leadership. So this approach is intended to provide both immediate relief to individuals struggling with current housing disputes and the long-term data necessary for the administration to deliver and be effective in terms of housing specifically. And as I mentioned, the hearings, they are named rental rip-offs, but the city does encourage homeowners and landlords to attend to participate in the policymaking process along with tenants. So the first rental hearing, rip-off hearing, was back in the end of February, and it was held here in Brooklyn. One of the most recent ones happened last week in Harlem, and then there's one going on in Staten Island next week. So there's been one in every borough. Just the mayor and the administration is just making sure that they get as much feedback and receipts from the homeowners and from the tenants on the issues that are plaguing the buildings. And I think that it's important to highlight because most New Yorkers are renters. I live in Brooklyn, but I work in Harlem. Most people who live in Harlem are renters. And when the housing market is operating as it is, homeownership is nearly impossible for so many people. And because of this, New York is a city of forced renters. So, if so many people are forced to rent, the buildings and the units that we are being forced to rent and live in should be held to a high standard and they should adequately be maintained. Renters have complained about leaks and damages that have not been repaired, rusty and broken appliances, bug infestations, and many other issues that have been ignored or have gone unaddressed. So it's just good on the New York City government and specifically Mayor Mamdani for elevating such a critical issue and trying to deliver for his people.
Wow. That's I know that's very important. I was actually the craziest thing. I just was watching a video last week and it came up on my feed and it was just going over the different living conditions, the apartments that was in the city, and
Mhm.
it was just showing how basically somebody had a studio apartment for like $2,500. These
Mhm.
they were showing how people when they wanted to open their dishwasher, they had to like shut their like they had to open the dishwasher, they had to like shut another a
Yeah.
cabinet, and then the door is actually up against the cabinet, or you even to open your refrigerator, you had to pull it out, and then to get in it, you got to squeeze around. It was just crazy. Just like I just think it just should be just illegal to be even actually to charge what they charge, and then it's like the living conditions. It is, I mean, the places look clean and everything, but it just looked at like
Sometimes, most
it's
times.
just. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the video I seen. They looked clean, but it's just the size. The one place it was a studio, and she literally her bed was like up in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So when she wanted to go to bed, the bed actually flopped down
Mhm.
where the like her living in her living room. it was one living space. I
Hmm.
get if you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
No,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
like, wow.
it's a common occurrence for New York City. You're paying way too much for a space with not enough a place with not enough space, and also there's a bunch of problems with it. And it's just again, we are a city of forced renters. So when you are
Right.
forced to rent an apartment built unit within a building, unfortunately, there's certain things that you just have to contend with, and it shouldn't be that way. So again, good on the administration for trying to do what it can to curtail some of these things.
Yes, indeed. Um, my initial engagement is out of Colorado. Well, technically, it's not where I live, but I mean, all politics are local, and if, as the saying goes, for you novice to politics, all politics are local, and they overlap with everyone. So one of my pet peeves is for people that would know on it on this network, especially with the organization, is I pay attention to policies that are affecting the LGBT community. And the Supreme Court just ruled a couple days ago on Colorado's conversion therapy ban.
Hmm.
For people that are unfamiliar, conversion therapy, in my opinion, well, it's not just my opinion, but it seems like some medieval mess. But basically, Colorado had banned the process of counselors and people in therapy actually trying to do anything but affirm a minor's sexual identity and their gender. Um, by conversion therapy, you are actually trying to break them into conforming into being heterosexual. Um, Overwhelmingly, which this was surprised down. Did you hear about this? You shook your head. That it came down 8-1.
Yeah,
Um,
unanimous.
well, basically,
Not
only
basically. Yeah.
Ketanji Brown Jackson. She was the only one that dissented.
Hmm.
But what what surprised me when Elena Kagan went with her affirmation of the decision, she stated that it was a free speech issue. And she said it regulates on a viewpoint. It allows counselors to affirm of minors' identity exploration, but it bans and forbids counselors from providing therapy to change the minor's sexual orientation or gender identity. Duh. But she said because it didn't allow for both viewpoints, she ruled that it was unconstitutional. But all studies show from scientists, the doctors, and counselors that conversion therapy doesn't work and it's actually more detrimental to the people. It actually gives them low self-esteem. It causes people to actually commit suicide because they are trying to be forced to be something that they're not. And I was just really like surprised that this was just upheld. And now, I mean, locally towards us, I mean, I'm in Delaware. Maryland has the same law on their books that was actually signed into law in 2018. So who knows? It may wind up going to the wayside in the future. But I think that was a real rousing start for the initial engagement. So
Yeah.
let's move on to what we call Capitol Hills. Capitol Hills is our section where as though we actually discuss several different uh, bills that are being debated uh, in Washington currently. We can bring two each, and then out of those four things that we touch on a little bit, we want to pick one, and we go do our deep dive when we go into our next section. So start off with what they got going on. What you pick? They got going on up there this week.
Yeah, so I have two. I want to touch on two. One, both are very important. One has to do with housing, the other has to do with voting. The voting one is the one that I think we're gonna hammer in on today. But I just want to touch on the housing bill. So the Senate recently passed a housing bill. It's called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It is a bill that came out of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. And it was the chairman, Tim Scott. He's a Republican from South Carolina, along with ranking member Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts. They released this bill, and it's a bipartisan bill that combines elements of a House passed act and a Senate passed amendment that had to do with housing. So it creates a series of grants and pilot programs for housing construction while revising federal definitions to encourage more housing units and prevent Wall Street from buying up tons of single family homes. One of the major issues with the housing market currently is that it is so hard for individual and first time home buyers to buy homes. And
Hmm.
part of that is because private equity is buying up a lot of the housing market. So a key section in this bill is titled "The Homes Are for People, Not Corporations." And that section, it prohibits large institutional investors from purchasing certain single family homes as a way to promote home ownership opportunities for American families and not for corporations. And this actually comes from Trump calling on Congress to pass legislation banning large Wall Street firms from buying up thousands of single family homes. He had mentioned this in his State of the Union address last month, or it's April now, so back in February. So the act restricts the purchase of new single-family homes by large institutional investors that directly or indirectly own at least 350 single-family homes. So think of private equity and corporate landlords. These are the kind of people and entities that are owning 350 single family homes. I mean, there's a debate on how much is too much and whether or not people who obtain, large amounts of wealth should be able to own X amount of homes, whatever. I feel personally like four is a little excessive. I think everyone should agree that 350 is more than anybody needs. And again, I don't care if that is if you're an individual investor or if you're working on behalf of a private equity or an investment firm. That is just too much. Not when we have a housing market where it's at. We have so many people unable to break into the housing market. It's just crazy that these entities own so much of the allotted homes. So the act provides exemptions for large institutional investors who seek to purchase or build new single-family homes specifically for the rental market, but it requires them to be sold to individual homeowners after 7 years. The act also allows the Department of Housing and Urban Development (HUD) to prioritize projects based in or primarily serving communities designated as opportunity zones, and these are opportunity zones are places that are ripe for economic development and there's tools that allow people to invest in these areas. And these are mostly like urban areas or rural areas where economic growth and job creation would provide, major benefits to these communities. And opportunity zones were actually created as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 that happened back in Trump's first administration. Back on the bill, housing advocates who spoke with PBS News said that many of the bill's pieces are worth fighting for, as they have the potential to improve the nation's housing infrastructure. There's efforts like solidifying disaster recovery programs, funding low-income home repairs, and keeping rural housing affordable. Um, all those things are in the legislation. It just to highlight a couple of the things, it creates a pilot program within HUD to support state, local, and tribal governments with whole home repair programs, which provide grants and forgivable loans to homeowners and landlords for home repairs and for modifications. It encourages new building by tying local community development block grant funding to housing production. So it provides bonuses and funding for accelerated home building and small funding reductions for communities that are lagging in home building. And it also allows for funding to be used for construction of new affordable housing. Um, it also creates a pilot program to help local governments convert vacant commercial and industrial buildings into affordable housing. And this is something that's really going to help with the housing supply within urban areas. Like I said, I live in Brooklyn. A lot of the buildings within Brooklyn are converted, whether that's like factories or whatever the case is. So the fact that, schools, office buildings, factories would have the ability to be converted into not just housing, but affordable homes. That is something that's going to benefit renters and potential, homeowners within urban communities and within rural communities as well. And according to a survey from the National Association of Realtors, the median age of first-time home buyers in the United States last year was 40 years old, and the percentage of home buyers last year, um, of first-time home buyers was only 21%. They made up 21% of all home purchases. Again, that's because private equity is so tied to the housing market and the impact that we're feeling. So the low share of
And
first time home buyers,
do you
yeah,
know where that stems from?
so what private equity?
How did they get all of these homes and buy them up?
Go ahead.
Do you remember? Well, you were young, but it's all
Back in 20,
stemmed from the financial crisis
yep,
in
back in
2000 and
2008.
2009.
Hmm.
And whereas though it comes from the bailout, they wind up lowering interest rates, and what wound up happening was these private equity from when people were losing their homes and they were getting screwed because the people was playing funny with the markets, and people wind up swooping up all those homes. The private equity did.
Yeah,
So whereas though the corporations basically own all the real estate, so it wound up bailing out the banks that was screwing over the people, and
hmm
then once that happened, private equity came in and still and swooped up all the property from the people that got shafted.
exactly. And there was little to no relief
And
for those
now
people.
it's what, 16, 17 years later, and they finally trying to put something on the books.
Yep.
Okay.
But I mean,
Better late than never. It's I
yeah,
understand that.
exactly, and that's why I wanted to touch on it because the low share of first time home buyers, it just showcases the impact of a housing market that has very little affordable inventory. And buyers like private equity firms with significant housing equity, they can make large down payments and all cash offers, which first time home buyers, they can't do that. First time home buyers are struggling to even enter the housing market. And it's such an important issue because access to home ownership has been the primary way for Americans to build wealth. And it is one of the it is one of the main components of, the so-called American dream. And, I just wanted to highlight this because, the bill is facing hurdles within the House and it's nowhere near close to being signed into law. Um, but it is a start. And, it doesn't do everything to address the concerns or the problems with the housing market, but like I said, it is a good start, and I think that there's some provisions in there that are worth fighting for. And Trump suggested that the House, the bill passed in the Senate, so now it's going over to that House, but it's not again likely to pass in the House. Trump suggested that they should focus on strengthening voter ID requirements and restricting voting by mail. That's something that again, like we're going to touch on in a second after you go over the bills that you're looking at. But he did say that he would support this bill and that he was signing into law. So I just think it's something that we should continue to keep an eye on.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It's is actually needed and it will actually help the common man. And sometimes that's very difficult to say when it comes to the laws the bills that become laws and being enacted in the last year and a half, 2 years. One of the things that I wanted to touch on that is they're debating in Congress right now. Actually, the District of Columbia again, which is one of those. DC is one of those projects where as though um, for you novice, I'm pretty sure you've heard of the term taxation without representation. Whereas though literally DC has like a delegate, but they can't actually really vote, and their budget is actually controlled by Congress. So a lot of times when they say, like for instance, when they were doing moving the National Guard into DC, and they were stating how the mayor and the police they were like open with open arms. You gotta have to realize that in many ways they don't have any choice because they have to play along to get along in order to have any type of autonomy and to make sure they get their budget needs because and it's according to the administration and the actual people in Congress on how they actually delegate the money to the district. But right now, what they're trying to do is they're talking about lawmakers are debating several new crime bills aimed to restrict DC's local control. So, whereas though giving it more control to the federal government. Um, and this is also based on different executive orders that that guy done signed. Um, and it's really a 10th Amendment challenge in some ways because about talking about state sovereignty and things of that nature, whereas though they're trying to force states to follow federal policies, including Medicaid and disaster relief funding, and actually take away funding to states and actually, I, I believe DC is a test drive to everything. They were the first that they put the National Guard in to see how that will work, and then they do a lot of to see about what their fund because they have the ability because they can actually do it and see how people will react. But it's very political. People, if you don't think it is, DC is a black city. It's always there. It's nicknamed Chocolate City. But also DC because of the different contractors that live in the DC metro area, it is one of the highest tax revenue. They pay more taxes than 14 Republican states, like literally. Um, it's a cash cow. There are a lot of, I mean, with gentrification and a lot of like with the Pentagon and a lot of the defense contractors and people living in it, it's a lot of revenue that comes from it, but they don't see any of it, and they don't get to govern their own town.
Hmm.
And part of the reason why DC will probably never, in my lifetime, and probably in your lifetime, never be a state is because it's Democratic.
Yep.
Same reason why Puerto Rico will
Yep.
never be a state.
It'll be another blue vote.
It'd be
Yep.
two. It'd be two. It'd be two. It'd be Democratic. They'll get two senators and it'd be Democrats.
Mhm.
But you talk about floating that dumb shit about Canada and Greenland and all that.
Yeah.
The more, you know, the white
Yeah.
areas. But that's neither here or there. Um, we kind of put a lot of time on that. So, but we should probably actually go into the main topic where we discussed, which is this section is called Two Hills, One Voice. Get it? Two Hills, One Voice.
Mhm.
And we do a deep dive into a very important legislation or something that's being debated. And we want to discuss the voter ID law, which really is not a voter ID law.
No.
It's what is called the Save American Act,
Yeah.
which it's not a voter ID law, it's a voter suppression law.
Yep.
It's nobody really wants it. It's not Republicans don't most Republicans don't even want it
Yeah.
because for one, it would actually disenfranchise possibly 21 million people.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let you get into it because you may actually hit some of the points that I want to hit, and I don't
Yeah.
want to dampen your flame. So
Yeah.
you go with, and I'll just chime in on. So
No.
let's talk
Specific.
about the
Yeah.
Save
Yeah.
America Act that's actually not going to save America.
Yeah, so going into it, like you said, and there's actually some debate which we'll get into about whether or not this act actually does disenfranchise voters. But like I said, we'll get there. So yeah, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. So it's called the Save America Act, and this is actually an updated version of a bill that was passed by the House multiple times within the last 2 years or so. But
Hmm.
most recently, it passed in February, and it will require individuals to present proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and for states to appropriately maintain their voter rolls. So the SAVE Act passed in the House by a vote about 220 to 208, and it was it was supported by like you had mentioned, there is some opposition obviously from the Democratic Party, but also within the GOP. But it was supported by, the likes of Elon Musk and a lot of the right-wing online influencers. There was a very big push to try to, popularize this bill online. And, Trump, he liked the bill, but he didn't think that it did enough to address fraud and non-citizen voting. So the version of the bill
Excuse me,
that
not
passed
I'm
the
going to
House.
chime in with that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Um, there is they're worried about fraud and
Yeah.
non-citizens voting. Is that an actual rampant problem that's going on?
No, so no, it's not non-citizen voting. It doesn't it doesn't happen because it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote, and there's no reason for someone who's not documented to
I
vote,
I would
um,
contest. I would
because
contest. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would contest that if I'm an undocumented non-citizen,
yeah,
I want to be under the radar.
exactly,
Why
yeah,
would I go and try to vote and get on some type of record?
exactly, yeah,
Oh,
no,
it's look at the numbers, people. In the last 40 years, a total of 11 non-citizens have voted in
yeah,
the widespread elections in 40 years.
hmm
The
yeah,
fraud is at 0.00001.
yeah. It doesn't happen, but they're trying to make
It
it out to
doesn't
be
happen.
this. They're trying to make it out to be this gigantic thing. But like I said, like there's no incentive for undocumented people to vote, like because one of the punishments for or the consequences for voting and you're undocumented is that you could be deported. So people aren't going to take, they're not going to trade their immigration status for, a single vote in an election. Voting is important, but is it that important for this specific population of people? No, it is not. And like I mentioned, it does not happen. So the version of the SAVE Act that passed the House is different than the version of the Save America Act that is going to be debated within the Senate. The Save America Act builds on the previous legislation by also requiring individuals to present a photo ID to vote in a federal election, in what's known as, a show your papers requirement. It imposes documentation requirements to register to vote and to vote in federal elections. And in turn, it eliminates mail-in registration by requiring citizens to present documentation in
in
person.
person.
And yeah, in person. And Republicans are trying to sell this as being solely a voter ID law, painting Democrats who are against it as supporting illegal voting and fraud within elections. But the reality is this bill goes far beyond just simple voter ID. And voter ID is something that's popular amongst Americans. There was a poll by Pew Research Center that was conducted in August of last year that found that 8 in 10 adults in the country favor some form of showing photo ID. When voting, 83% of respondents favored voter ID. 71% of them were Democrats or Democrat-leaning voters. 95% of them were Republican or Republican-leaning
But
voters. And that again, voter ID. There's 36 states that already have some form of voter ID laws for voting. 23 states require photo ID. This is not for proof of citizenship is different than photo ID. So real IDs, driver's license, state IDs, hunting and fishing certification
exactly,
licenses,
student
those things, student
IDs.
IDs, those are not going to
Yes,
qualify. You're going to need,
and
you're going to
and
need
and
a,
even in certain,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Dal, even
Yeah,
in
yeah,
certain states, when it comes to, like for instance, in Texas, when it comes to our senior citizens,
yeah.
they can senior citizens, if you're over 70, you can even use a ID. It doesn't even have to be, it can be expired,
Hmm.
but as proof. See, you can use hunting licenses in
Hmm.
certain areas where it's though. So basically, they're saying as long as you have some form of identification,
Hmm.
we're good with it.
Yeah.
And just to prove that you this person when you sign on the roll. And also they have your signature is on roll and you can compare the signature.
Hmm.
This is not a voter ID law. First of
No.
all, I have an issue with the Democratic Party actually being pro voter ID, period.
Hmm.
Um, the Democratic Party was never pro voter ID. And because, and you shouldn't have to be, because there's no issue. So all it
Exactly.
is putting more obstacles in the
It's made up.
way
Hmm.
for poor black and brown people
Hmm.
not having the opportunity to vote.
Yep.
You can't tell me anything else because guess what? There is certain areas where as though some of these small rural areas, they didn't keep records the way that they do, even when it comes to birth certificates and things of that nature. I have a friend whose mother had a big time trying to get her paperwork straight because when she was born 70 something years ago, she had a different first name
Hmm.
and it was changed.
Yep.
They don't understand these little towns, and I'm not going to shit on Florida. I can't stand Florida, but I'm just shit on my people from Georgia. These little small towns in Georgia and Mississippi, down south, these little rural towns, they don't keep the records the way they. Sometimes it was a doctor, and they put shit was written in a book
Yep.
with their weight, this, that, and other, and how they supposed to generate a birth certificate. So
Ex- exactly.
I'm sorry to cut you off,
No,
but go
no, no, you're
ahead.
good. But no, you're good.
No,
That's
I
exactly
want to
what.
interject some of these things because the bottom line is nothing but a suppression act.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And like I mentioned, it's not a voter ID act, a law
No,
because uh voter like a regular ID is not a passport. A regular ID is not a birth certificate or other
you can't
approved
even use your real
documentation.
ID,
No, and so let's get into
and you
that.
need
There's been a
6 points
big
for that. This is the
exactly. So
bullshit.
there's been a really big push in recent years for folks to get real IDs. That they're required for air travel, but a real ID isn't
What do you
sufficient
need
to
for real
document.
ID, Dal?
Isn't
And your state?
so what was you needed a birth certificate. You needed like you did need like official documentation. So you needed some form of another ID and along with like a birth certificate, a social security card, or some kind of other identifying documentation to get it. But the thing is, real IDs, they don't provide proof of citizenship on them. Only 7 states have licenses that have proof of
7.
citizenship on
Yes.
them, 7 of them, and they're commonly among states that are bordering Canada. So most Americans they can't use their driver's license or their state IDs to register to vote. Tribal IDs wouldn't be accepted either unless they have an expiration date, which most tribal IDs don't have expiration dates. So the bill it not only requires proof of citizenship, but it also requires proof of residence in order to register to vote. And this could block even more Americans from voting because there's a poll that roughly 9% of the population has moved within a state within the last month, and many people don't update their driver's license until they expire. And I personally relate to this because I waited over a year to update my driver's license after I moved. So I still have my previous residence on my driver's license. And you had mentioned people who are like getting married who don't have their maiden name on their birth certificates. That could affect up to 69 million women. And that's why I wanted to get into that conversation of whether or not this bill actually disenfranchises voters. There's a big debate over that. And on this topic, I liked what Democratic Senator Patty Murray had to say about it. She said that the bill would, quote, make it harder and more expensive for many people to register and to vote. And that extra hassle and expense would mean that some citizens who are eligible to register and to vote will, in practice, not complete the needed process, even though the bill does not take away their legal right to register or their right to vote. So it just makes it harder. So it puts a hurdle in
It's
the
a poll
voting, which
tax.
exactly. So even if it's not explicitly saying these populations cannot vote, it is making voting much harder for these populations, which in turn it is voter suppression. And it shouldn't be it simply shouldn't be allowed. And one of the bill's requirements is that voters provide citizenship documents in person at election offices. And as I mentioned, that would basically end online registration, mail registration, and voter registration
Same
drives.
day registration.
Exactly. And according to something from the election law blog, you know, online registration, mail registration, and voter registration drives were methods that accounted for 1 in 3 voter registrations in the elections during 2018 and 2022. And I think it's so important to highlight that because even I believe it was Senator Mike Lee, he's the Republican senator from Utah.
Yeah.
He had pointed out on
The
Fox
piece of
News. He
shit
said,
from Utah.
yeah, he said this bill it's not about the amount of non-citizens who voted in the 2020 elections or the 2024 elections. It's about who's registering to vote now, who's going to vote in the election, in the midterms this year, who's going to vote in the presidential in 2028. It's and again, it's not
And why is that
non-citizens who
important?
are doing that.
When does this what is the caveat that this is the caveat? This is what people need to pay attention to. When the when would this law, if this bill became a law, when would it take effect?
But so that's the thing. There's different provisions in it that could take place at different times. Now they want to push to try to have this
They
implemented
want
right
it
away, but
immediately.
but the thing is that it's just not how it's not how the Constitution works. So that's the thing. Even if this bill were to pass, states have the right to regulate elections, local, state, and federal elections.
Right.
So there's going to be separation of powers questions that need to be answered. There's going to be legal challenges, especially within blue states. Those going to be likely. It's just the federal
And
government
it's
doesn't have
a
the ability
poll
to do
tax
this.
because
Yes.
people will have, okay, this is the different Canada. in other countries, they give you this the state
Hmm.
actually gives you they pay for the identification that you would need so you can vote. If distinctly, if you need to go get a passport, which is $160,
Yep.
and over 50%, only 50% of the country actually has them.
Yep.
And most of them that don't are in your pull don't red states because those people don't go anywhere past sleeping with their cousin that lives on the other side of town.
Yep. It's expensive to travel.
And it's
146
expensive to
million
travel.
people don't have a passport.
No. So, but this is the thing. And I want to make this clear. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat.
Really.
I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I haven't been a registered. I've been registered. I've been not affiliated before Obama. Um, because I don't believe as a black person you should actually be registered to any party. Um, because I think, and I don't think we should have any parties. Period. That's a whole nother thing. But that, I mean, I just fall into the same notion that with Thomas Jefferson and the actual founding fathers that were slave owners, where they just thought that you should. George Washington didn't believe you should have any type of political parties.
Yeah.
But if you don't file an affiliation with with actual party, then it's up to the actual singular politician to try to win votes based on their merit, not
Hmm.
because of the letter that is next to their name. And that's where as though it gets a lot of laziness when people are just my family are Republican. I was brought up this, and that's where a lot of people bring up why they voted for the the, the piece of shit that's in office now is because they always was just been a Republican,
Yeah.
you know. And but guess what? MAGA is not Republican. I know Republican. I'm from New Jersey.
Hmm.
We had moderate Republican governors. You know, being socially liberal and fiscally conservative was actually a thing. It was moderate Democrats.
Hmm.
It's just this thing that we in now is where as though it's all out, like really like war. You used to
Hmm.
be able to have conversations with people,
Yeah. Not anymore.
but seriously, when somebody used to say, I one, they was one issue voters, or they had one issue and they vote. You're a dumb piece of shit if you're one issue voter. Because guess what?
There's
No
more.
candidate
There's
ever
more going on.
is ever
Yeah.
going to be. It's going to be 100%. And you can't sit there and tell me that I voted for the economy. That's all I care about. So basically, people voted for the economy, but they was killed with racism. They're cute. They cool with black and brown people getting riled up and punched in the head and thrown into detention centers and things like that.
Yeah.
But now that the eggs didn't go down, the gas didn't go down, and a lot of people now everybody's the uproar. But you got what you voted for.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, I'm from New Jersey. That man was a bankrupt piece of shit since the '90s. Lost every
Even before then.
daggone
Yeah.
casino and everything. Already knew we already seen it. We seen his movies. He was a fake bill. He actually made his money skimming. Y'all stop that man from going to prison so he can just basically charge you for a $500 daggone Trump phone. I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm sorry. We want
Yeah.
to keep on
No,
with
you
it,
can.
but the truth of the matter is, it's not going to pass.
No, no, it's not going to pass. There's like we mentioned, there's Democratic opposition, there's GOP opposition. Some of the
And
things that
it'll be stuck in the courts because it
yeah,
again for people that don't know, it's a poll tax. The
yeah,
poll tax are outlawed. Because back in the day when they didn't want people that look like us to vote, they made it where so they had literacy tests and they had poll tax where so you had to pay in order to vote.
yep,
And voting is a right. People try to make it seem like voting is a privilege. It's
mhm.
not a privilege.
No, it
It's a
is.
right.
It is a right. They're also trying to make the that same argument with citizenship now. The Supreme Court is hearing Trump's
Yeah.
claims
Oral
on the
arguments.
birthright, yeah, on the birthright citizenship thing, and the administration's argument is that citizenship is not a right. It just simply it isn't. Although the Constitution would say
They were
otherwise.
trying. They tried.
But
I heard the arguments today.
yeah,
And
Trump
first of
sided
all,
on the arguments.
first of all, everybody that is actually still working for this organization, they are probably part of the 53% that only has sixth grade educations and just have the fake law degree. Because
Yeah.
he, the Solicitor General, the guy that was arguing the case, they brought up the fact that, okay, so would Native Americans be citizens?
Hmm.
And he had to sit there and say, well, I guess so. But their issue was they talked about a domicile. So they saying if two immigrants
Hmm.
are that are in the country and then they give birth to somebody, no matter what, because they are not citizens, then that their offspring shouldn't be a citizen.
Hmm.
If we here now, Dallas. So I'm gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
The whole purpose of the 14th about birthright citizenship was because nobody lived here.
Hmm.
This was a new country. You just started it. The only people were here was the indigenous black and brown people that you stole everything from and
Yep.
you colonized. So just like the current president's grandfather got kicked out of Germany and
Hmm.
he came here because they stripped him from his citizenship in Germany.
Hmm.
Because why? His grandfather was a draft dodger.
Hmm.
That's originally why he came to America. And then when he went back, they said, you're done. Immigrants, everybody's an immigrant.
Yeah.
So they said, in order to have citizenship, and just come in. And if you were born here, automatically you were a citizen, no matter what,
Yeah.
because it was just about numbers and getting a population. People are so naive and ignorant where white people believe that they are native to this country because they were born here. They're not indigenous to this country.
No.
And that's your sixth grade education.
Yeah.
This is why they say they don't, he loves the uneducated and the marginalized because with fascism, they don't want you to be educated. They don't want you to know things. They just want you to listen to what they're saying. And you get caught up with it. You just shake your head.
Hmm.
And you people, them, you have been complicit because the system that was in play benefited you. Now, when it doesn't benefit you, now you see what black and brown people been saying all this time. With all you pick me's. I'm sorry. Let's I
No, you're
when
good.
we going to this is going to be interesting in the coming weeks when we start talking about all these different subjects because it's it's all a revolving door. And
Yeah.
the revolving door always spins back to the fact that black and brown people, majority black women, black people, for all these years been telling you what this system is.
Hmm.
I want to do is, you know what I want to do in the coming week on 1 hour week, one sub. I want to do, I want to do a whole show on woke and what is the meaning of woke,
What it actually means versus what
what the
they're saying it
actual
means
meaning
now.
of woke is,
Yeah.
and what it actually in the details.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
don't
But
think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say
Wrap
I
up
think
this save
the
that.
yeah, yeah, no, I was gonna say I think the pivot into the conversation about the birthright citizenship arguments and stuff, it just ties in perfectly with why Trump is doing this because this bill it also comes out of an executive order that he signed last year on preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. This entire Trump 2.0 project is about grievances. So part of this is holding on to the fact that he believes that the 2020 election was stolen and was fraudulent. So this, show your papers bill is a priority for Trump. He is threatened not to sign any other legislation until Congress passes the Save America Act, even though the White House did partially walk that back and saying that he would sign a bill that would fund, the Department of Homeland
You don't have
Security.
to, but you know
But
what? You again, you got to dig deep into that. What
yeah,
you know, and but when you hear that, people that's listening or watching or whatever, if Congress passes a bill
hmm,
and the president doesn't sign or veto it in 10 days, it goes into law anyway.
yeah,
So when he's actually saying that, it's insignificant. A lot of times they throw stuff up against the wall just to see how there's going to reaction and see if they can. If, because I don't know, mysteriously TSA just started getting paid somehow when
yeah.
he
But
said he
that's
wasn't.
yeah, because he's saying it's drawing on money that it has already been appropriated to DHS for like operations related to DHS. So they're just going to try to maneuver that money in a way that it can go towards
But that could
paying the
have been
TSA.
done 39 days ago,
Exactly. They've been in a
and
shutdown
that's the
since when was
point.
it? The Valentine's Day, basically. Yeah. Yeah,
And
no, for sure. So,
and
go ahead.
y'all can look this up because if people want to fact check me because I didn't. I didn't research this, but TSA is a federal organization that just came in existence after 9/11
Hmm.
because um
Homeland Security
pe-
and as a whole after 9/11. Yeah.
right. People often lean back and talk about Project 2025 actually wants to dismantle TSA and make it privatized and things like that. That's neither here nor there. That'll it won't happen. It's a lot of things that have to go to trigger
Hmm.
that for it actually to happen. But one of the things is TSA is a federal job and they have union and they get benefits and things of that nature. And it's a lot of black and brown people that work for TSA. It's a
Yeah.
lot of our people. And
Hmm.
I'm not just talking about in Atlanta, and I ain't talking about just in Philly and in black.
No, all over.
I'm talking
All over.
I'm talking about all over.
Yeah.
So again, it's a thing where as though the working a lot of times when it comes to the working man and working woman and different things, it falls right back into black and brown people,
Mhm.
big time.
Always, always. And
It's
just to wrap
just
up, yeah, just to wrap up, like the conversation on the SAVE Act. Like you had mentioned, it's not the bill's most likely not gonna pass. But it's very important to highlight because, like I mentioned, states have the right to regulate their elections, and there are states
Florida's doing it.
With Republican-led legislatures that have taken up the calls to introduce their own proof of citizenship bills. As you mentioned,
Yep.
Florida is one of the states, South Dakota, Utah, Mississippi, Iowa. They passed or they're working on proof of citizenship legislation. So I just wanted to highlight the SAVE Act because it's very important for everyone, everyone, to keep an eye on what state governments are doing and staying up to date on voter requirements so that these people don't just get away with taking voices and votes away from citizens, because that's what this is about. It's even if they say, well, we're technically not taking the right to vote away, they're trying to make it as hard as possible for
Hmm.
people to vote. And in the year 2026, that's just idiotic, and we should not at all allow it. And if we do, shame on all of us. We literally don't have a republic anymore. We don't have a democracy anymore. We won't have a country anymore if we allow these people to just take our voices. So stay up to date on what's going on locally and in your state. And call your Congress people. Say like, no, we can't have this. Make your voices known.
Just the thing. Any person, any politician that wants to make it harder for you to vote, I don't I don't think that's somebody you should actually try to support. You need to
No,
find out who's supporting these type of legislation. And granted, we want to dig deeper into how it breaks down and how actually the Republican Party is a minority party. And I will also say that it is whenever it comes times when Republicans actually govern, they can't govern. They're
no.
a reactionary party.
They serve well in the
They're a
minority.
minority party that shouldn't govern
Yeah.
because when it they can't run budgets, they don't. It's trillions of dollars, and they there's no such thing as being fiscally conservative anymore.
Hmm.
Um, it's with Democratic presidents, the economy is better. They leave the economy better, and that's just proof in the last 45 years
Yeah.
because trickle down theory, the trickle down economics don't work.
Hmm.
And we'll actually get into more when we deal in the economics thing and talk about how Ronald Reagan, everything that we living in 2026, what my son is dealing with and what his generation is dealing with, it is because it happened 45 years ago. And it
Hmm.
started with a with an old racist, old fucking actor. He was governor in California.
Hmm.
And they said give the give the rich people tax breaks, and then the money's going to trickle down, and they're going to invest it in it. And no, they just kept it all. It used to be better when they actually paid a higher tax rate because you had money for things, for school, for for housing. You had money for roads because
Yeah.
people paid. I had somebody, a friend of mine, who's your age, say they already pay a lot. They don't. They don't pay their fair share. You can pay a lot. It's still not. It's not the highest percentage.
Hmm.
But we'll get on, and then we'll get into how they actually make a lot of money, but they don't pay any taxes because they just live and take loans off of the assets they own.
Exactly.
It's all it's all crazy if people actually realized how just the economic structure of this country is all based on a house of cards.
Hmm.
Tomorrow, if somebody said the dollar was worth zero, all the money that you had in the bank would be insignificant,
Worthless.
worthless. It's
Exactly.
all a game. People know? I just found this out a couple months ago about petrodollars
Hmm.
and how it actually really works.
Yeah. This war in Iran has you learning about oil economics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's only one system, and the United States made the financial system the oil system. So whereas though it's propped up by petrodollars,
Hmm.
the same thing whereas though it's many countries, including Russia and China, that owns our debt,
Hmm.
trillions of dollars worth of, and because they have American bonds.
Hmm.
But that's a whole nother financial show that we gonna get. It's so many things we gonna we gonna be able
No,
to
for
touch
sure.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we'll get to them. Yeah, and
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good segue into our last segment because that part of what you just touched on is
Yes.
what I wanna highlight. Would you say
Okay,
go ahead?
so yeah, we let's segue to our last segment, and our last segment is called "Hill Said What Hill Said," and this is our personal opinion on. A lot of times, it may be something that we discussed earlier in the show, or maybe not discussed at all. Um, I have a video that I want to play. Um, I didn't. I often in the last couple months, and I hear this a lot. I talk to a lot of people in work or um smart people. Um, but and then the craziest thing in that you know, in the last 3 months, I've actually been more into looking at reels and videos and YouTube and stuff like that. I know I'm really late to the game because I never read it, but
Yeah.
the algorithm, I got a pretty good algorithm because and but I would hear a lot of people of color say that we live in the greatest country and they love this country and they wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And one person stated, black guy was like, I just came from shopping at the mall.
Hmm.
I didn't worry about no bomb hitting me. We had war, but I went shopping. You can't tell me this is not the greatest country. Black man. Another guy, one of the guys at work, he's like, I rail against this country. James Baldwin once said, I love this country. It's the I love this country more than any other in the world. And because the love of this country for the country, I have the right to question it and to question her because I love her. I'm on that shit. So when people say this is the greatest country and I don't want to live anywhere else, that's fine. But a lot of people don't question and they just go along with the go along and they just go along with capitalism and this that. I got a video I mean, because I want to play. We want to play and tell me if this actually, you know, is the greatest country in the world.
Still holds up in 2026.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
We're the only ones in the world who have freedom. 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right. USA is not considered a full democracy. Freedom of speech, US ranked 27th place.
There is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy,
36th, 54% read below 6th grade level,
27th in math,
26th out of 81 countries,
22nd in science,
10th out of 81,
49th in life expectancy,
40th, lower than most Western Europe,
178th in infant mortality,
5.5 per 1,000 births, worse than most developed countries, ranks near Qatar and Romania,
3rd in median household income,
5th, depending on the study,
number 4 in labor force,
17th, below many developed nations,
and number 4 in exports.
2nd after China.
We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita,
Still number 1 in the world,
number of adults who believe angels are real,
possibly still number 1 with 70% of adults believing in it, but I couldn't find data for other countries.
and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined.
Still number 1, spends more than the next 9 countries combined.
When you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people.
Remember this speech? Let's see.
See, that was from 2012, and of course they updated like what's been said with the numbers. That was from a show called The Newsroom, which the gentleman that was actually portraying it, he was a moderate Republican, something that really truly doesn't exist today. But when you talk about being the greatest country, I always look at the numbers. I always look at the facts. You could be the richest, but why you don't have universal health care? You have it because the top 1% has more money than the bottom 50%.
Mhm.
We don't have to have homelessness.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. Capitalism, people say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and things of that nature. But, and we're going to get into it. I have a problem with people thinking that this country is so great when you have to fight and scrap for everything. When my grandfather fought for this country in a segregated unit, and when he came home, he didn't get the GI Bill. We all still waiting for our 40 acres and a mule. Now, people like to say, no, that's stuff in the white people. And some of you Tom-ass Negroes and people will say, that's the past. If you don't know the past and you don't regulate it, you cannot fix the future.
You're destined to repeat.
And I want to touch. I want to touch on it. We don't have to because I know you need to say yours, but the Ghana came with a resolution at the United Nations to say that the gravest threat against humanity was the transatlantic slave trade. 153 countries voted for it. 52 stayed on the side, abstained, and 3 voted against it. The 3 countries, of course, was the United States, Israel, and Argentina, saying because this country has never reconciled the true issue, the true damning thing. Germany reconciled about the Holocaust.
Yep.
South Africa is reconciled about apartheid.
We reconciled with
This
Japanese
country
internment.
reconciled and made deals with, and they done fucked them over in some of the treaties, but with the native, with the indigenous people, even with the the thousands of people that fuck with Japan. They will never, have never, and will never reconcile the true crime of the bondage and chattel slavery, which never existed in this world. It was never that you were born into servitude. It was always indentured servitude. It was always a time limit. It wasn't to the point where it's though your bloodline.
Mhm.
My name that my son has, the name that I carry, was on top of a goddamn plantation.
Yep.
They will never reconcile that. Until they do, it's I don't speak French. This is the United States. It's they, they're never we. I would never, cause they ain't never included my people for real. And I'm gonna say that with my chest until the day I die.
All right, night. And honestly, part of that kind of ties into what I want to talk about. And we didn't really share what we wanted to talk about. But they kind of do intertwine. So let me just go ahead and hold on. I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah, share my entire screen and play this video.
Okay. I can't hear nothing.
You don't hear that? Hold on.
You got the volume muted on there? Or is it just going in your headset?
No, I did. Hold on. Let me stop sharing.
Sorry, guys.
No, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, you know what? That's all right. First episode, we got to work the kinks
Okay.
out. I'll make sure to send the
Yeah, man,
videos,
yeah.
ahead
Chapter
of
one,
time next
chapter
time.
one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not a problem. But what I was trying to show, it's a video from Trump had a press conference yesterday,
Yesterday,
and
yeah.
yeah, and man, you won't believe what he said. Coming from a sitting president, let alone anybody within government. He said basically, how do you expect the federal government to pay for childcare? How do you expect us to pay
Childcare.
for
We can't
how
pay
do you
for it.
expect us to pay for Medicare? How do you expect us to pay for healthcare? We have to fund a war. Word for word, that is what he said. He said, we don't have money for children. We don't have money for education. We don't
Yep.
have money to make sure that our families are fed or healthy, to make sure that they're educated. We don't have money for things that don't concern the military industrial complex, that don't concern
Hmm.
overthrowing foreign governments, that don't concern seizing oil and seizing assets from other countries. And I wanted to highlight that because that's not something that is specific to this president, this administration, or this Republican Party. It transcends both parties. It transcends
Yep.
administrations. It is something. It's a sentiment that's been held by many people within government, currently and formerly within government. And it's that. And and this is what he said. He said that the United States federal government's responsibility is to provide military protection. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say the sole responsibility of the federal government is military protection for its people. No, that is not right. And I wanted to highlight this because he's either brave or stupid enough to say it out loud. But again, the sentiment is shared by both parties, and it's because the government is captured by
What's that
corporations.
called, Dal? What's the term?
Yes, I'm going for corporate capture, and that's
But
what this.
neoliberalism.
Yeah, yes,
Ne-
yes, and again, that is something that affects.
neocons.
Yeah, it affects both parties.
Blue MAGA.
Yes, money in politics is part of why Washington is so ineffective. There's always going to be money for war. There's always going to be a strong lobby effort for war. There's always going to be money in pain. There's always going to be money, as I said, for overthrowing governments and seizing assets. But in order to get a government for the people, by the people, where we can have childcare, we can have healthcare, we can have housing, we can have education. We need to get money out of politics because normal people are being priced out of the human experience. And we need our leaders to stand up to big money interests, and we need to do our part in demanding that they doing that. And going off of what you were talking about, unfortunately, we do have to fight for it. So it is on all of us to make sure that our future is better than our current situation in our past. And America, I do believe that America is a great country, but not for what it was or what it is, but because it's always open to become a better version of itself. Congress under Joe Biden passed the child tax credit that lifted half of children living in poverty out of poverty. It expired, and all of those children went right back into living in poverty. And
Yep.
a lot of what's happening in the country, a lot of what's happening in the world, as I mentioned, it's a choice. We choose to have on any given night over 500,000 people sleeping on the streets. Over 11% of them are veterans who served in the armed forces. We choose to have so many people uneducated. We choose to have so many people living paycheck to paycheck or uninsured. And the country, it can be better. It needs to be better. And getting money out of the way is the first step in that direction. But as I mentioned, it takes all of us. So it's going to be a effort that happens amongst you, me, everyone, in order to call on our officials to, again, to um, get money out of politics, to actually start serving the people. We don't have a government that's for the people, by the people. We have a government that's for the rich and powerful, by the rich and powerful, and the only people that are benefiting are the rich and powerful and the corporations. And if we want that to continue, then more and more people are going to be priced out of the human experience. But that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to slave away for corporations. We're not here to, worry about where our next meal is coming from, how we're going to be able to pay rent. And it's a shame that in the richest country in the history of the world, that so many people just are worried about so many different financial, situations. When again, we're spending $1 billion, over $1 billion a day on this war in Iran, and yet the president of the United States simply said that we don't have money for children because we need to pay for war. And it's a travesty, and it's a shame on all of us if we allow it to continue. So that's something I wanted to highlight, and that's something that I really think everyone should be paying attention to, because we can't allow our country to be taken by the corporations. Where'd he go? Oh, must have been a barn burner. Drop the mic on him. Let me see. Is he still here?
I'm sorry. I had a coughing issue. I was
Okay,
like,
gotcha, gotcha. I was about to say,
had
was it?
something was in my
Yeah,
throat.
okay, cool.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. Um, that's truly important. And like I said, a lot of these things that we touching on tonight is like we going to go into greater details because this is just chapter one, but it's a lot of things that we want to drill down on and touch. And like I said, when it comes to politics, it's what people need to understand. There is no more, ah, it used to be able to like, I don't do politics, I don't get involved. None of that, none of that stuff matters to me. It don't affect me. Everything affects everybody.
Yes, it does. Yep.
And when we talk about all politics are local, you don't actually have to be really geared into everything that like on the federal level, but you need to at least know what's going on in your backyard where you live,
Hmm.
what how things are going where you at, because that's how it works. Because that's how you can actually when you were talking about how Trump was saying they can't pay for daycare and Virginia's doing it.
Hmm.
Virginia's doing it. because they wind up they doing all kinds of things about energy and everything because the Democrats done took office
hmm New York City's doing
and
some kind of
they
version of it.
huh
I'll say New York City is doing some kind of version of it. We have
right
Universal
right right
pre-K
right.
and 3K. It's about to
But I'm
introduce
just
Universal
also even with
2K.
the utility bills, like Virginia's put in place whereas though you can put actually have like solar panels
hmm
in apartment buildings, like on your balcony, so you can cut costs that way. And then they actually are like, for instance, letting the tax credits lapse on the data centers,
hmm
so whereas though they can actually get some revenue from the data centers that they have in their state. It's a lot of different things,
hmm
but we already done went over our time,
Yeah,
our allotted time that we wanted to do today. But this was great. Um,
for
I think
sure.
it was really good initial first chapter, and a lot of information as y'all were going to see. We come with a lot of opinions. We come with a lot of knowledge, and we do a lot of research to try to give you the knowledge that you need, and that way you can learn and you can stay informed and give the true. The opinions is based on facts.
hmm
I know that's very hard to believe when everything is supposed to be fake. And those daggone people actually liked, like it was 600,000 likes on some fake AI military bot.
I'm sure.
Did you see what some Jessica Foster thing? You know what I'm talking about, Dal?
Yeah, but I mean, it just goes to it's part of the
Idiots.
broader
That's the
AI.
sixth grade level right there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and the government is making so that you can't, they're trying to legislate AI so that states can't touch it. So basically just saying we're gonna let AI just run wild and things like that, just false videos, it's gonna be hard. And you can, as long if you pay attention, you can tell what's AI and what's not. But eventually it's gonna get hard to decipher what's real and what isn't. So a lot of people, they're not gonna be able to look past, even if like a video like that, you can watch it and someone could say, hey, that's AI. Half of the people that watched it, they saw that, boom, that's gospel now. So even if you tell them that was fake, they believe that, and it's a difficult place, and it's a scary place to be when we're talking about politics and AI. I mean, that's definitely a topic I want to touch on, and in the coming weeks because it's very
Mhm.
dangerous, and you see they're using AI. They're using AI to try to sell this war in Iran, which is a war that we're fighting on behalf of Israel. They're using AI to, so they're going to use it to sow distrust and misinformation when it comes to elections. And they're going to use it to, just for anything to score political points. And you're going to see the dangers that AI is going to have, and beyond just the utility costs and the way that it's killing communities where these data centers are home at but yeah, that's a topic for another week. But this was a great first trial run, and I'm looking forward to continuing this going forward.
Absolutely. And on that note, we will conclude and we'll be back next week with chapter two. Um, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you then. Have a good night.
Alrighty.
Later.